Alright kids, today I'm going to be doing something a little different. I'm going to be making a video response. How many of you remember those? For those that don't remember, YouTube used to have this function where you could literally respond to a video. You make your own video, you post it as a response, and it would appear just below the video that you responded to. You could see this entire list of everybody who made a response to that video. But for some reason, back in 2011 or 2012, I think, YouTube decided to get rid of it. That was one of the dumbest fucking things they ever did, besides getting rid of private messaging. But anyways, since I can't post an official response anymore, I'll leave the link to the video I'm responding to in the description. It's by a guy named Temphuibis. Some of you might have heard that name before. Some of you might also even be subscribers of his, because I know back in 2007 and 2008, a lot of his fans were subscribing to me on the TomDog account. But this is kind of a weird video to make because his 20 gaming questions video was made over 9 years ago. I always wanted to make a video response to this, but for some reason I never got around to it. Life is funny like that. But anyways, he's got 20 gaming questions, and I'm here to answer them, so let's get started. First one is, what is the first console you ever saw? And he meant that literally. Not the first console you played, but the first console you can remember seeing with your own eyes. For me, that would have to be the Sega Genesis. For my dad's 30th birthday, he got a Sega Genesis. I was a little toddler at the time, so that's the first console I remember seeing and the first console I remember playing. And by the way, I still have that console. And I still have the first game he ever got for it, which was Mortal Kombat, which was also the first game I ever played. Second question, what game are you best at skill-wise? I don't have a specific game. The closest thing I have to an answer is a genre, which would be the first-person shooter. Third question, who is your favorite game character? Much like question 2, I don't have a direct answer to this question because I don't have a single favorite character. The closest thing I do have to an answer, though, and I'm not really even sure if this is my favorite, is the Enclave from Fallout. Their suits of armor look so fucking awesome. Question 4, what is your favorite era of gaming? Again, I don't have an answer. I have a bunch of favorite games from the 5th, 6th, and 7th generations of gaming, even from the 4th, but I noticed that as the years went by and certain things in games started improving, like controls or gameplay techniques, I started noticing a lot of problems in games that I would previously call my favorite. So I don't really have a favorite era of gaming anymore. Question 5, what is your least favorite genre? That would have to be a toss-up between the fighting and the racing genre. I can't play them. They bore the absolute shit out of me, and I don't really know how to put it into words, but something about just fighting on the same small arena, fighting the same guy, or racing on the same track, it just bores me. And sure, you can make a similar argument for playing the same level of a first-person shooter or an RTS over and over again, but in those games you have a lot more freedom to move around and do what you want. In a fighting or a racing game, you're stuck in that little arena or that same track for the most part. That's the best way I can explain it. Question 6, do you prefer retro games redone or authentic? That all depends on the game. If we're talking about a game like Vector Man or Sonic the Hedgehog, there really isn't anything about those games that needs to be reworked, but if we're talking about something like the PS1 version of Quake 2, that game needs a complete fucking overhaul. The controls are absolutely terrible to the point where the game is nearly unplayable, it needs widescreen support, it needs a frame rate fix, and probably a whole host of other bug fixes too. So it really all depends on the game. Question 7, are you normal-handed, arcade-handed, or active-handed? Now, Temphuibis used Ridge Racer 7 on the PS3 to better explain this question. Normal-handed, you're playing with a regular controller. Arcade-handed, you're using an arcade steering wheel. Active-handed, you turn on the 6-axis motion sensor and steer the car that way. In that case, I'm normal-handed. Question 8, have you ever bought the same console twice? Yes, I bought the PS1 twice, the PS2 twice, and the Xbox 360 4 times. Question 9, what is your favorite video game soundtrack? I don't have a favorite soundtrack, but I do have a favorite song. That's Lone Trooper from Command & Conquer Tiberian Sun, with Dusk Hour being a close second. Question 10, have you ever played the Video Challenger? You mean this thing? I never even heard of it until you mentioned it in your video. Apparently it was some kind of toy back in the late 80s where the games you played were on actual VHS tapes. That's something I'd really like to try one day. Question 11. Graphics or gameplay? Gameplay, all the way. I don't care how pretty the graphics are. If the game is unplayable, what good are all these fancy lighting and shader effects gonna do? If you spend all your time and resources making the graphics look pretty, everything else suffers as a result. Just go look at Gears of War 5. Question 12. Have you ever beaten Super Mario Bros. 1 on NES without using the warp zones? I've never played Super Mario Bros. 1 or an NES, and I don't ever intend to, so no. Question 13. Cartridges or CDs? It doesn't matter. Question 14. What console do you have the fewest games for? I'm not sure if Temphuibis considers all the games you have for emulators to count toward this, but if we're going on hard copies alone, I'd say that would be the original Xbox. I think I only have about 5 or 6 games for that. I can't remember off the top of my head. Question 15. What is the highest number of players you've played with in a local multiplayer game? Including myself, 3, back when I played GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64 as a kid. Question 16. What 2 games do you think should cross over? Oh, jeez. There's so many different crossovers that I'd like to see, but for starters, I think we should take the Doomslayer and put him in Fallout and let the hilarity begin, and then after we're done with that, we'll let the Tyranids and the Flood go up against each other and see how much havoc they can wreak on the galaxy. Question 17. What is the worst glitch you've ever encountered? That would have to be Fallout 3. There'd be so many times where the game would just inexplicably crash for no reason whatsoever, and many of those times I hadn't saved in a good long time. Fallout 3 is one of my favorite and least favorite games ever. I've got such a love-hate relationship with that game. I love playing it, but it's the buggiest, most broken game I've ever played. Question 18. How much do you think a story matters in a game percentage-wise? That would all depend on the type of game you're playing. Obviously, the story in a racing game isn't going to matter nearly as much as it would in a first-person shooter or an RPG. But in terms of finding an actual percentage number, I don't have one. Question 19. Do you have an original character you created for a video game? If so, who is it? No, I don't have one. Question 20. If you made a game, what genre would it be? First-person shooter, obviously. Now, Temphuibis also had a bonus question. He wanted to know what genre of gaming we think his music would best fit, but I haven't heard too much of his music, so I can't answer that question either. And that's it. Like I said before, I posted the link to his video in the description. I also posted all the questions he had below that. In case you guys want to make your own responses, you can post it on his video or on mine, whichever. Alright kids, thanks for watching. If you're already subbed to the channel or are about to, be sure to hit the bell so you get notified when I post a video, hit the like button, and give me some feedback. I don't care if it's good or bad.